Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Almirante Grau. This is one of the most fun ships in the entire game. This is a tier 8 cruiser with infinite reload boosters, essentially, through combat instructions. So when I click my F key, I get 66% better reload. It's like an Austin at tier 8. More forgiving tier. If you find Austin a little bit too tricky to play, this could be a good option. You don't get heals, so it is still hard to play this ship, but it's extremely fun and available for direct purchase. I know this does not sound good, alright, but a ship being available for direct purchase is kind of incredible these days. Given how 2025 is going with Wargaming and their monetization, it's just in the armory for 13,300 doubloons. Which is a lot, alright? It definitely is a lot, but there is a coupon for 25% off a doubloon ship purchase. So if you have that available, maybe this is an option if you want to spend money on the game. I would 100% recommend this over any of the Admiral packs for over $200, or certainly any of the gambling-only ships, alright? This is much, much better. And it's a really fun ship, alright? This F key, these combat instructions are incredibly enjoyable to play with. An event ship like this one coming back is amazing to see, and I've been very critical of Wargaming on their monetization. I've already been critical in this first minute and a half of this video of their monetization methods, but doing this content rarity system, doing this ship rotation idea, taking away old premiums from direct purchase, I'm not a fan of that. It feels very forced FOMO in my opinion. But if it means we get old event vehicles coming back for regular, reasonable purchase prices, I'm okay with that. In fact, I think that's a great thing. One of the biggest issues with this game being 10 years old at this point is there's plenty of old ships that people are incredibly interested in that they'll just never be able to play. And that's really sad. So if we have to deal with a little bit more FOMO in the game to get some of these old ships back, that's a trade I personally think I'm willing to make. It's not perfect, but it is an improvement for those looking for some of these older event ships that are just never available normally. And Grau being back is one of the better ones. At tier 8, having this burst fire is absolutely hilarious. You can get a ton of damage in a very, very short period of time, but you're quite weak when this F key is not active. And the only way to charge it is by being undetected. That's the whole idea behind this ship. You go dark, and you wait the 50 seconds or so for it to fully charge, and then you burst out an insane amount of damage. It's very fun to play this way. A lot like Austin at tier 10. It is a really, really fun experience. It's totally different from pretty much everything else in the game. And because of that, I think it's worth looking at, especially if you don't have Austin, you don't have a lot of steel, or you just don't want to play tier 10 with such a close range or gimmick heavy ship that requires the right situation to make it work. It can work in tier 10, even tier 10 with tier 10 carrier. We're making it work here. Getting very fortunate that the carrier is not focused on us. Okay, we got to say that as well, first of all. But we're making it work here. Notice in this clip, my F key is actually not fully charged, and now we're lit by this Richelieu. So it's time to stop behind this island. We don't want to just full charge out and greed for more damage. It's so important to get your F key available when you take an engagement. The ship is incredibly weak. It's very poor DPM. It's like 147,000 HE DPM at tier 8. Consider Cleveland is 243,000 HE DPM. But Cleveland doesn't have an F key like this one. And yes, I have IFHE here that allows me to pen this Richelieu everywhere. Going flat broadside with such a thin profile on this ship means this Richelieu is just going to overpen our Citadel. That's why I went intentionally flat broadside. On the battleship side, I find this very frustrating. But when I'm playing a cruiser, I'm just going to abuse it, all right? I'm going to take advantage of it. Why not, right? And yes, we're able to burst through all that Richelieu HP before he even reloads it yet again. The ship is kind of crazy. It does not have the best arcs, and it also does not bring much utility. Concealment's nice, like 9.8, a little below 10 kilometers. I'm not running heavy HE, by the way. As much as I would love to full greed for that, the F key is just far too important for this ship, and it being a requirement that we stay dark some of the time, it's really nice to have that better detection. Now moving along, I've got quite a few clips to show you, as this ship is less of a prolonged engagement style of ship, but more bursty, as we would expect of an F key like this one. If you try and use it as just a standard cruiser HE farming from behind islands, it's going to do okay, but try to be undetected, okay? I think doing this whole standard reload, like 7-second reload, you can get okay damage with the fire chance being decent here. In this clip, I'm actually not running IFHE, so the fire chance isn't too bad. But the real damage and the real potential of this ship is unlocked with this F key. You don't have to not fire, though, to stay dark. You need to use islands creatively. You need to use smoke screens as well. If you're in a div, it's a lot easier, obviously. But in this case, we can push up to this smoke screen, as well as maybe use our burst fire when the enemy team damage controls fires. Always be on the lookout for the little flashing lights on superstructures of enemy battleships in particular. That means they're using their damage control. And when those lights go out, they're vulnerable to permanent fires. And that's what we look for to get a ton of damage out of these cruisers. I'm not quite aiming correctly. Getting used to these arcs took a little bit. In this case, our teammate gets the fire. That's fine, but just as an example. And pushing up here, we're still dark, so we can continue to fire. We want to be engaging ships while constantly reloading this F key. If I have to choose between shooting and getting lit or staying dark, most of the time, I would say 75% of the time, I'm going to choose to stay dark and not fire with this ship. There are options where you should shoot. Like if a destroyer is spotted at closer ranges, like 10 kilometers away, especially early game, if that DD is spotted and taking engagement with your DD, those are times that you definitely should be using your guns. Although early game, you should just have your F key available anyway. You can actually use a trick with this one if you have the special commander where you need 2 F key activations to activate a special buff with Lisboa, who, by the way, is back and available in the armory. You just need some coal to unlock enough crates, and that'll finish the collection for you. Very nice to have that commander back, as well as a very interesting cruiser like this one to pair him with. And that F key activating twice is going to get us some nice bonuses, primarily getting you just a permanent 20% on your F key. You'll never lose that. Really nice to have, as well as extra speed on your ship. Once we get enough main gun hits too, as this is a DPM cruiser, we actually get bonuses to our main gun reload too. It takes like 175 hits, so it takes a little while, but with a few F key activations, shouldn't be too bad. Should talk about IFHE versus no IFHE with a ship like this one, I think, as it's very powerful in the right situation to have IFHE, as we've already seen. But into cruisers, you have 30 mil pen already, so you actually don't need IFHE, and all you're doing is cutting your fire chance in half. It's hard to know which situation you want IFHE and not. It always depends on the battle, honestly. But with a ship like this one, where we're so heavily focused on our burst fire, I actually prefer IFHE. I noticed that most of my damage is coming from these bursts anyway, so I really would prefer to guarantee a lot more alpha damage in them, as we're hitting so many shells during a burst that we're probably getting fires anyway. Even if we're cutting our fire chance in half with IFHE, it's still like 7.5% fire chance. We're hitting enough shells that we should be getting fires anyway. Notice Palmer, those little lights on his superstructure, they're about to go out, and I'm trying to time it so that my shells get there when those lights go out. On German battleships, it's like 15 seconds, I believe, 10 or 15 seconds, something like that. And with our arcs not being the best, it's like 9 seconds here, we can start shooting even while those little lights, his damage control immunity time, is active. There we go. We get our buff to our reload. It's not a ton, but it's, you know, it's nice to have. This ship is definitely better with Lisboa. I think the primary buff that Lisboa gives to the Grau here is going to be that permanent F key charge. But I'm not charging my F key right now because I'm still lit. So I reverse just a little bit so Palmer isn't actually spotting me. Now we can start charging up that F key while shooting. That's going to be the best games. You're not always going to get opportunities for them. In fact, I rarely did, where you get to farm alongside being undetected. Typically, that's not going to be a luxury that you have. And yet, this ship can still perform incredibly well. Finding opportunities to push, well, what if you catch a destroyer at extremely close range? We don't have sap like an Austin does, but that doesn't mean the damage isn't ridiculous with this F key. The other thing being, it lasts an incredibly long time. Have you noticed this? I played Austin recently for Ship Request series, I believe. Had a good time with it. But this is a 30-second action time on these combat instructions, while Austin only has a 15-second active time on its reload booster. So double the time you're with this buffed reload. It's really, really fun to use. It's kind of surprising how long this F key does last on this ship, but given that you have to stay dark to actually activate it or build up charge on this F key, maybe that's fair. Wu Jing here at very long range. That is an Alsace clone, by the way, at tier 9. So 32 millimeters of armor everywhere. That's the other reason that IFHE is pretty decent. You're at tier 8. You're not at tier 10, where there's been some inflation on armor profiles as of late. I think we can say that. A lot more 40 mil plating. Certainly 38's very common at higher tier, thanks to a lot of American battleships, several premium tier 10 American battleships these days too. At tier 8, you find just so many more 32 mil armored battleships to fight in your bracket. And while it does nerf you a bit on your fire chance, we're still getting a decent number of fires. It's kind of hard to aim at these longer ranges as the battleship does go down there while we still had charge. We're still bursting through him, and he's already gone down. That's crazy. Destroyer spotted early here, and do I use my F key? I decide to because this DD didn't instantly pop his smoke. It's an Italian destroyer, so it can go dark whenever it wants to. The reason I didn't use my F key right away is because I figured he would pop his smoke. Took him a little bit to do so. Perhaps that player was actually baiting out my F key. I don't know that for sure, but if he was, that's 200 IQ. That is incredible, actually. He took a little more damage for it, I think, thanks to blind firing through it a little bit. And yes, it's still active, so we can get a couple of salvos into this Baltimore. But for the most part, your F key should be available in that early game. Even if the carrier beelines for you, they shouldn't get to you in time to actually disrupt charging that initial F key. And then it's up to you to decide, are you staying spotted long enough that the carrier is hovering around you that you aren't going to greed for that initial activation that is almost useless, only there to get your Lisboa buff sooner. Now here's a situation where I actually reverse out flat broadside to a battleship. I waited though until he fired. We know battleships have a long reload, so we're not scared of them if their guns aren't loaded, right? And while he's loading his guns, I decide to move a little bit forward, just enough that he's probably going to shoot someone else anyway. And I think there's a lot of island cover. There's a lot of positions like this on several maps that should allow you to use your guns around the islands, over the islands, and then duck into cover to recharge, all right? We're jumping forward, but just know all I did in these jumps is I sat behind an island undetected for like a minute, waiting for my F key to recharge, and then I think about reversing around into the open to get my burst off, and then go back into the island again. We don't need to be firing all the time. We just need to, when our burst is available, get that damage in. And even into cruisers, it's not just about farming battleships. This Baltimore is admittedly going in a very straight line, so it's pretty easy. But the damage into this Baltimore is extreme. And a lot of cruisers won't be expecting another cruiser to burst this much damage. You'd expect it maybe from a Cleveland, but even a Cleveland wouldn't have this level of DPM. It's kind of wild. And now it's about time that the battleships start to push around the corner on us, and we have to mention a big problem with this ship. I've compared it to as a tier 8 Austin already a couple times. Austin has some pretty good torpedoes, and those are very useful for when you push up like this, and then battleships decide to charge around the corner to flush you out. It's a big problem for this one. You're not having that close range anti-YOLO around the corner to take out the cruiser, okay? And you got to be very careful of that. In this case, I'm playing with fire, considering this guy could easily just shoot at us, and I'm not even flat broadside, so likely his shells would actually fuse here on me. I'm noticing that right now as I'm getting behind the island, deciding to play a little safer. Fortunately, I had enough teammates there to back me up to take out that hovercraft, but you saw where I was aiming, right? I was going for his bow. It's really important to know armor layouts if you're taking IFHE. Without it, you can just aim for superstructure, and know generally battleships, you're not going to pen them anywhere but the superstructure, and you'll get good fires. But while taking IFHE, you got to know where the 32 mil plating is, as IFHE is only getting you up to 37 millimeters of pen. Not enough for the vast majority of higher tier battleships, but their bow and stern sections are often just 32. And still getting those fires even with taking IFHE here on this Nebraska. That burst fire just guarantees so many shell hits. A little wonky dispersion from time to time. It still is cruiser dispersion, don't worry, but either it's aim bugs, maybe it's my misaim, okay? Could be my misaim, but maybe it's just that you're firing so fast that the game engine can't keep up. I don't know that, okay? I don't actually know that, but it's some speculation on my part. Now this key, okay, I have to apologize. If you're this player, I'm sorry, okay? This is absolutely disgusting, the amount of damage we're gonna do. And it's only through our burst, okay? Early game here, pushing up, finding an island, and we're detected for a bit. But remember, it's a 30-second burst. So it's essentially a single battleship reload is the time that we're actually going to expose our ship to get our damage in. And then we're gonna cut into the island instantly and be undetected and unhittable. So there's not a lot of time for cross maps to come in, unlike sustained DPM ships like maybe a Cleveland. You'd want to sit out and farm for longer. Where here, as soon as my F key is gone, we're going to start to move, I think, unless I'm greeting for another fire. But what happened here with this poor key is that we use our F key, we get a fire fairly early on, and he instantly damage controlled it. So after his immunity time runs out, which is 10 seconds, 15 seconds, I think, somewhere in there, we got another fire because our F key just lasts so long. And we're getting full pens, right? We're getting full pens everywhere. The carrier is keeping us lit here, so notice I'm starting to lose progress. It takes a little while, but we do lose progress slowly. But now we're undetected again. We get a tick of progress. But Hipper is about to come around the island to spot us. So I stop, okay? I need to stay undetected. There's no way I'm going to easily take out this Hipper unless I have my F key. We're just nowhere near as tanky, and our DPM is similarly bad, except he has better guns. 203s, right, where we only have the 150s. But just barely do we get the F key, so suddenly we easily out DPM him. Look at the AP. Well worth using this AP. It's rather light and floaty. Doesn't have a lot of pen. But it's well worth using into upper belts of battleships when they're broadside, as well as cruisers at these closer ranges. And again, getting our nice buffs from Lisboa, the F key, as well as the reload buff. Now, I haven't shot this key in the entire time that I've cut out, all right? All the damage we're about to do to this tier 8, same tier battleship, is from 2 bursts, okay? We get another fire. This poor guy is on. He's having a bad day, okay? I don't blame you, Mr. Key Player, if this was your final game of the day, okay? It certainly would be for me if this was the experience here. Oh my goodness, then the Torps are going to finish him off as well. This ship is crazy fun, man. It's hard to play, okay? I'm showing you good stuff here, but it's really hard to play. And we actually did almost 70,000 damage to that guy in 2 bursts. Yeah, this is a monster, man. It is really, really good. But it's squishy, no heals, not very good armor. It's hard to play, but it's really fun. And so if you're interested in this one, it is at least available. Can I be honest with you guys? This feels very weird, okay? For me to be praising a ship for being just a direct purchase for a lot of money still, right? How far we've fallen, you know? How far we've fallen. But if we've fallen so far, this is at least a step in the right direction. Grau is just here, available for a direct purchase. I'm not a fan of the content rarity system. I am definitely not a fan of these loot box events. Loot box only Tennessee, by the way, this current update. Very relevant to be talking about this. At least with this content rotation idea, maybe we're going to get some of these older event ships back for direct regular purchase. Please, Wargaming, let this be a sign. Bring back some of these old event ships for people to just buy for a regular purchase price without any other shenanigans. I think that would be great. You do have a coupon, keep in mind, so highly recommend waiting if you've already used it or something like that. There is a coupon here for doubloon ships specifically, and that should help out on the cost a little bit. Nottingham also available, Numancia. I think these 3, Grau, Nottingham, and Numancia, all sort of event ships that were just not available. since their event ended and now are again. So good news, good things that Wargaming is doing. They're a couple steps back in certain areas, but this is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. This camo is from that event, though. Bit of a funky one, so your ship would look like this one. Much cleaner. Single color camo, but considering how busy this superstructure is, I still think it looks pretty cool. And your armor is almost non-existent. You do have a 27 mil deck armor, but 25 mil everywhere else. Your Citadel, you know, there's some spaced armor here, but it's 30 millimeters only on your inner Citadel plating here. Only 50 out here, 75. Very vulnerable to cruisers especially. Even destroyers, you're going to have to watch out. But it is a waterline Citadel of sorts. There's a weird step in it here to be aware of in the middle. But as you saw, it's very thin, so at close range, those battleships are going to have a tough time actually fusing and having that AP explode in your Citadel without just eating overpens. It's a bit gimmicky, it's a bit tacky. I'm not a fan of that being in the game because it means at close range, you just walk out flat broadside, almost like an idiot, and yet it's the smart thing to do. It feels silly to me that you can overpen Citadels like that, but that's a game mechanic. The thing I relate it to is like if you're in CS2 or whatever, and you like peek long on Dust 2, and then the op would just overpen and not headshot you. Like, maybe that's a bad example, but that's kind of how it feels to me. It's like, okay, maybe there's like a punish that should happen there. I don't know. Anyways, on to the commander. Here's what I was running towards the end of it. You don't always need IFHE. Certainly you could swap for some other skills, but I like the consistent damage out of this one. It guarantees so much more damage out of the burst. Honestly, given how well this went already and how easily it felt to charge the F key, I'd probably now try to greed for heavy HE somehow. I'm a little bit too greedy though sometimes, so I would probably try and make it work somehow. 7-second reload, only 8 guns. They're 152s. They don't do a ton of damage, so you really got to be mindful of the F key. But this F key is just incredible. It is so much fun. And that's going to do it for the Grau video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, especially about monetization ideas and criticisms of them. I really do want to hear from you guys on that. I want to keep going in the right direction. I want to be using this as a bit of an amplifier for what you guys are feeling on the direction of this game. And I think we're in the right track. I think I'm on the right track these days. But it's time for me to go. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.